Hello, I'm Ellie and welcome to Susty Talks, and today I am talking about authentic dressing as a low-income girly. If you're new here, Susty Talks is all about having, genuine conversations. This is a community-centered podcast where I try to bring in honest perspectives on sustainable fashion, on sustainable change, on intersectional solutions. I really do believe that we need online spaces that inspire change, that inspire action, and to make sustainability more accessible and relevant to everyone. And this is a self-funded initiative. Just want to say that I sell and recirculate clothing on eBay and now on Depop. The links will be in my description if you want to support me. And then I'm also working on crafting a Mexican denim collection that will come out in October in Chicago that basically aims in pushing a narrative of more upcycling and DIY initiatives in fashion collections and to just challenge mainstream narratives of fast fashion. So I know if you're a loyal watcher that this podcast episode is coming out late. I was originally supposed to film it on Wednesday, but I had job interviews and I was just going through it. There is a lot you have to do when you're a low income, which is exactly the point of this podcast. I don't come from a lot of resources. I actually live in a frontline community, and if you don't know what that means, it's basically front of the line of social issues, environmental racism, a lot of exploitation and marginalization of minorities. Personally Mexican American. My parents work in factories with subcontracted work, so they don't really work under the company. They work for other companies that just give them like really bad pay and no benefits, and that just has been the case my whole life. They don't really have education from the United States, and it's just hard when there's language barriers to move up, you can say, the career ladder. So yeah, I've been struggling to find jobs in the city that I'm at, where I was raised, because it is very factory based. There isn't a lot of career jobs that pay well. So I've been struggling to find something, been interviewing a lot, and within the process I started thinking about authentic dressing, how to dress as yourself. And I feel like to be yourself is increasingly a very difficult thing to do in midst of pressures to be someone else or do something else or change who you are. So this honestly came about though because someone commented on my last podcast episode saying you need more structure and you need to give more solutions in your podcast, when I literally said I was going on tangents, and I said there really was, I guess, no end point to the conversation, because I said my brain is spiraling and going in circles trying to figure out how to grapple with sustainable fashion brands and if we really need them in the industry. And then they said to cite my sources, and I was just thinking a lot of times my experiences aren't enough for others, especially if they come from a privileged background. And I started going in this spiral of thoughts of why do I always feel like I need to explain myself and my experiences to others? Why do I need to cite my lived experiences? We're not in school. I feel like a lot of times privileged people go to school, go to college, they gotta exactly reference where they got their information or where they got their inspiration, when I live a lot of hard truths that you can't learn in college and that you can't cite. And I'm not reading or writing things to be academic. I'm talking from a way that wants to share things in a very honest and genuine way, hence the podcast. So you learn from someone, and if you don't believe them, that's on you. But it just really made me question myself and be okay, how do I cite myself? How do I pinpoint myself and reference it to an article or to a book, or where I actually learned stuff, or how did this knowledge get sparked in my brain? Can I trace it back to an exact thing? But I mean, I don't have to. It's just I think other people's perceptions and needs often mess with you, and it reminded me of the process of clothing ourselves in the morning. It's very influenced by your predictions and assumptions of what other people will think of you, of their assumptions. You're kind of, in a way, assimilating sometimes to other people's expectations or feedback or their viewpoint. And it's so unfair, especially if you have such a unique style or unique sense of being. No one is alike. It's just crazy how we all kind of wear trends and kind of look the same with fast fashion, but we're all so unique as people. And I think we're all grappling with how to dress ourselves in the morning. And I just have certain limitations where it's like, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of support and going to sustainable fashion brands and buying something from like organic tinsel. Yeah, but to give context to who I am a bit more, first of all, I just want to say it's unfortunate that there is inequities in how much we get paid based on our race and based on our background. But it's very much a reality. There is social disparities that often bring minorities down and put them in the hardest jobs, such as factories, subcontracted work, and put them at the bottom rung of the social ladder. Our current President Trump is currently detaining and transporting immigrants back to their country because they're being criminalized for coming to the United States to find a better job and to support their family. And even if they did cross a country, you can say illegally, I personally feel like this whole stereotype that immigrants are criminals, that they're just here to ruin our economy, or like they're just like not to be trusted, is such a sad testament of our times and just the racial tensions and how that causes so many of the issues that we find within jobs. So for example, I see migrants working in the fields in California, working in factories, working in the jobs that no one else wants, and they're not being paid well. They don't have benefits. It's back-breaking work, quite literally. And yet they take it because they care about supporting themselves for having a better life. And yet the government treats them like they're shit. You know what I mean? And they don't even have money to think about like buying a new jacket next month. Like survival is so hard on these people, and yet we treat them like they're nothing. And I think it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And I'm afraid for my safety and my well-being as a Mexican American, because there's so much racial profiling happening right now with the cops and ICE that I don't even know if I myself am safe, or if my parents are safe, or if my whole city is safe. So just being in a frontline city within the current political times is survival, and there's a lot of fear, and sometimes clothing doesn't make it to the table. And so to think about fashion and how to authentically dress is a privilege in itself. It's a way of almost resist the oppression and the marginalization that I'm facing. And I can't cite that from an article to prove my point. So whoever's watching and saying cite your sources, again, I cannot cite the fear and the anxiety I'm feeling from this current presidential election, from these current politicians that just say things to oppress us. I was seeing the other day too how a politician was saying that young kids should go get a job and they don't need the free lunches, that they should just get a job. And that if he could work and go to school at the same time, why can't they? And that sentiment is so crazy. It really is. And it just shows how much we're putting pressure on individuals to just work and work and work and work to bring money to the United States. But within clothing, I would say that I have tried my best to find a career and find a good paying job through fashion. I went to school in a private liberal arts college. I got myself into a lot of debt. I got myself into $40,000 worth of debt. And I double majored, got a business degree, got a fashion merchandising degree, and I really believed that college was the answer for me. I thought it would get me finally out of poverty. It would give me more opportunities than I ever thought imaginable. And for some people, that is the case. They can get careers, they can get opportunities, they can network, they can increase their opportunities, you know? But for me, I didn't have that fortune. I've been struggling to find a job, and I'm not lazy. Okay, I have been trying, and I've made bad decisions. I volunteered too much. I changed the trajectory of my path too many times. Career changes can seem a bit hard to grapple with in interviews, or for people looking to hire someone that's like within a certain confine of their mind's limitation. Like, I recently had an interview with a high school to be their clerical professional help or whatever, so like basically helping with like clerical duties, and they saw my resume and they were just like, can you tell us the background of these experiences, like why you got into this, like how did you come about doing all these different things? Because I've been in editorial work, I've been in communications jobs, I've been in community outreach, I've been in teaching roles, I've been in administrative assistant positions, and it was always the case that they kind of like disappointed because I changed the trajectory of my career every year, and they just get so suspicious, and I'm like, y'all are brain dead if you think I shouldn't be changing my career and exploring life and stuff like that. But for me, I've just been going from thing to thing to thing because nothing has really been working for me, so that's on me. But it's also confusing for other people to be like, oh, she's exploring life and she's learning and she has had all these opportunities. It almost seems like a threat to other people. But I honestly went to college and I honestly got into so much debt, and I did all these things because I wanted to move out from this survival mode, to move out of like just expecting to be this like random Latina from a frontline community and not doing anything with her life. Like I wanted dreams and I loved fashion. Like that was what always mattered to me. No matter what, I always was talking about fashion. I don't really care about how people dress. Like if you ask me, oh, how do I look? I'd be like, oh, that's fine. I'm not interested in styling. I've always liked fashion for me. I've always loved creating for me. I would always sketch my little designs. I would get little fabric swatches and put them next to the sketches. I would have a Pinterest just on all the collections that were coming out. I literally remember in my chemistry class, I just would scroll on Pinterest looking at fashion and then saving the photos. And then I saw a different app with all the latest fashion collections, and literally I would look forward to the next collection that was uploaded on the app, and I would just save all the photos and just look at them all evening. I would look at every single detail that the collections could provide, and I just loved it. I loved it for the aesthetics, for the beauty, for just the ethereal happiness. And no one knew I loved fashion so much except for like my parents and my brothers. And I would sketch clothing all the time. And I would have them all over my room, and I would like film little fashion shows of my Barbies with my little like camera that my mom gave me because she had like a vintage camera, and she gave it to me when I expressed interest in cameras. I just grew up designing. I grew up sketching. I grew up putting fabrics on my Barbies and tying it with like hair ties so that the fabric could stay. And then I learned how to hand stitch. So I started putting the fabric on my Barbie, holding it in place, and then stitching it at the same time I was holding it in place. But later on, I learned what the needles were to hold the fabric in place. I forget what they're called. The holding needles, you know? And that's how I would then keep the fabrics in place. But that kind of didn't work for me as a 7-year-old because it kept poking my hand. So I just always would hold the fabric and then stitch. And then you can see like the big outside stitches of the clothing on my Barbie. But it didn't matter what it looked like from the back. It always mattered what it looked like in the front. And then I would take the photos and arrange the Barbies very prettily. I've always dreamed of fashion for the sake of creating, for the sake of its beauty, for the sake of my personal enjoyment. So when I think about authentic dressing, I only am thinking selfishly about myself. I'm not talking about others and how they dress. I've actually personally got annoyed when people are like, do you like my outfit, or can you help me style an outfit? Like I don't do that. I don't care. I hate when someone wants affirmation with an outfit that they wore. Like, I don't even know where to start. Like, why did you choose that shirt? Why did you choose that pants? Why did you choose those shoes? Like, it's a whole journey to understand why people wear what they wear. And when they ask me, do you like my outfit, or what can I do to improve it? It's just like looking at this huge puzzle and being like, what? Like, you're asking me to grab more puzzle pieces and adding it somehow to make a collective image. Like, I don't understand what the overall image is. Like, what's the reference? What's the inspiration? Where are we going? What do you want to achieve? How do you want to be perceived? How do you feel comfortable? The tonality of your skin affects things. Your silhouette affects it. And if we only have 5 minutes and you ask me, do you like my outfit? I'm just gonna look at you and be like, yeah, sure. I always say, oh yeah, your outfit's great. Even if it isn't, I'll say it. you look great, girl, or you look great, guy. Like, as long as it's clean, as long as it's presentable in a way, like, I'm fine with it. You're good. I don't want to bother. And this may sound selfish, but I'm not a stylist. So authentic dressing for me within the space of sustainable fashion is more so a journey of understanding my own values and my own interests in my own values within the fashion industry. And I don't care to tell people how to authentically dress within sustainable fashion. I'm never going to tell you, you can only wear this or you can only wear these sort of pants. Like, I don't care. Like, people can dress however they want. Like, it's none of my business if you wear a brown corduroy pants with like a leather jacket and a pink shirt. That combination may not sound cool to me, but maybe you can pull it off. And that's the beauty of authentic dressing. Everyone should do whatever the fuck they want to do. Like, if you want to wear the most horrendous outfit, but it was thrifted, or you got the pieces from a clothing swap, or they're your grandma's, and it's like technically sustainable fashion, I prefer that outfit, that vibe, versus someone just wearing fast fashion and being lost in the idea that they don't have no idea what they're wearing. Unique style is so much more important than fast fashion, even if it's aesthetically ugly from the outside. And they don't need my validation. And I don't think anyone needs anyone's validation. I think it's just like a complementary part of our human existence where we just want to be affirmed, to be seen, to be supported. At the end of the day, like, we should all be dressing for ourselves. Like, I want to dress for myself without the limitations of my financial setbacks from the oppression and marginalization that I feel. Like I've said in the past, I dress like a basic white girl because I've been afraid to stand out in majority white communities because they're often filled with prejudice and racial biases. I'm not saying everyone is racist. I'm just saying it's quite common for privileged white people to fit marginalized people within a box, to fit them in generalizations and fit them into assumptions. And I didn't want to stand out. I was afraid to stand out. I was afraid for my safety. I assumed the worst to keep myself safe. And I would try to pass off as white. I would try to say the right things to just not be more of a character, you can say. I kept myself as an NPC. But I think when you authentically dress, not only are you living your values in your clothing, it may be common to try new styling. It may seem better to pair one texture with another texture that's not in trend right now. I feel like when I've explored authentic dressing, which is still a journey for me, I don't try to fit myself in a box anymore. I try to mix things together. I try to have fun. Again, it's going against the standardized aesthetics. It's also a journey and just like finding cool pieces, no matter the logo. So if I'm at a thrift store and I love a piece, I'll buy it. I'll support it. I'll put it in my closet. Is it a brand that I know? Probably not, but does that matter at the end of the day? But I feel like most of us, especially younger consumers, are caught up in this like brand identity or brand logo hype where your whole style, your whole appearance is based on logos and based on these brands. But I just feel like it's a myth that you can find authentic dressing with brands. But if that's just who you are, that's just who you are. I can't tell you to stop. It's just I wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards brands to give myself my style, to give myself that authentic closet that I actually need. But each their own. Like, maybe it just feels safe to buy from a certain logo or from a certain brand. Like, I don't know, because I've never been that person, nor could I afford to be that person. I feel like as a low income individual, I've never really been able to buy from the mall. I've never even been able to buy from Shein. I know that Shein is always accredited and giving more affordable options to the masses, but I haven't even been able to spend, let's say, a $10 shirt that has like $6 shipping. I don't even know what the shipping is, but it's like not within my budget to buy more clothing at a very frequent pace. You know, I try to use what's in my closet by force. I try to mix the same pants with different shirts, with different jackets, because I'm forced to, not because I want to. I've been forced to be creative. I've been forced to self-express myself with the limitations that I've had my whole life. And I think sometimes people say that capsule collections are innovative or trying to rewear what's in our closet is a good challenge, but it just shows too that they've had money to have more options. They've had the privilege to have so many things constantly coming in when I haven't. And now this isn't a competition. This isn't to dog on certain people. It's just when you're from a certain background, it's maybe easier or more natural to understand sustainable fashion because we've been practicing it our whole life. It's just been in our blood to only buy what we need because we don't have money to buy what we desire, what we don't need necessarily. So it's funny how there's all these guides, all these ethos of rewear, repair, and reduce when it's literally just the mindset of someone that's also in survival mode. Going back to the basics of how to love your clothing is the basics of someone surviving and doesn't have money to buy new. It's actually really interesting if you think about it, but no one has really said this in this space. And then we have all these sustainable fashion experts being like, look at this guide on how you can love and rewear your clothing. What? If you didn't have money, this would be natural to you. But we have so much money and time that we're reading guides on how to actually use our stuff. That's kind of crazy. It's always been mind-boggling. And I'm trying not to be mean, but sustainable fashion is classist. It's elitist by its nature. That a lot of people in this quote-unquote movement just have too much time and too much money and too much privilege to start off with. And I really hope more people realize that we're all practicing sustainable fashion. It's not this niche thing that we all make it out to be. Instead, it's something that we're all doing. We're all trying to figure out how to rewear the sweater that we really love. We're all trying to figure out maybe I should fix that hole that's in my pants because I don't want to buy a new one or can't afford to buy a new one. Also, with dressing ourselves and practicing sustainable fashion and trying to figure out how to best dress ourselves authentically, it's all a process of understanding ourselves, understanding our consciousness, how we think, how we dress. For me, it's never been a very logical process. It's been more of an emotive process to be like, okay, I really like how this sweater feels. I really vibe with this pants. And then once I have an outfit together, it's like, okay, do I like the vibe? Do I like how it makes me feel? And that's how I go about setting the outfit for the day. I don't really think with reason. I don't say this works because of this or this works because of that. It's just a feeling that I get that it works. And I feel like within my journey of knowing my style, I need to trust my intuition. I need to trust my feelings. I need to trust how things flow versus being in my head and just trying to perceive what people will think of me or what they want from me. I think the emotive part will be a lot stronger. And I'm a Pisces, so I kind of vibe more with intuition and just imagination. But my logical, I guess socialized part of me doesn't really care and goes against it a lot of times. I think I need to trust myself a bit more. Hopefully you start trusting yourself a bit more and trusting how you actually want to dress. But it is a journey. And I would say fashion is art. It's not straightforward. It's actually not super bold and knowing what the purpose is necessarily. When you look at an art piece, let's say in the museum, that's kind of an abstract art piece. You're not thinking, okay, the point of this is to inspire you to paint, or the point of this is to blend this color with this color. There's no explanation at the side of what the main takeaway will be for you. You just look at it, consider it, and you're like, oh, okay, I really loved how they put this shade to that thing. It reminds me of this floral mural that I saw on a trip to blah blah blah. And then you get inspired with so many different ideas, And then so many other creations and inspirations come from just one thing that touched you, but you didn't read a whole paragraph to be touched, to be inspired. And I feel like that's what fashion is. Like, we don't need to be so bold or so straightforward or so logical with it. Like, we can just kind of like look at the outfit or look at a piece and just flow with it, go with it. Like, you'll see what will happen with it as time comes. And I try not to like go shopping too often because it does hurt my bank account. But when I do go shopping, I get so inspired at thrift stores. I look at all the pieces and I'm like, wow, I can pair this with this. Or I love the 70s vibe with like this 90s jacket. That's why I love thrift stores so much, because you never know what you're going to find. And you literally see all the different eras coming together. And there's so many different ways that you can pull off an outfit if you just buy the pieces. But thrift stores honestly have become so much more expensive. I've talked about this in past podcasts where people are just like pricing things so high, and every thrift store functions differently. There's different pricing guides, and one of the thrift stores that I used to work at, the sorter of the donations also was the one that would price things. And when I worked at a different thrift store in Montana, the same thing was the case, where it was general staff who were sorting through the donations at a moment would just price things based on some like abstract concept of its value. And most of the times we didn't Google anything. We didn't really look it up. We were just like, we think this is like interesting. It kind of looks like it would be worth $5. Just put $5 on it. But recently I've just been seeing more and more people and more thrift stores pricing is higher. And it's like, we only get paid, what is it, $7 federal minimum wage. And then you're lucky if you get $15 or $16. I live in Illinois, so they're required to only give you like, what is it, the $15 an hour sort of thing. Who can survive off of that if a shirt is like $7 at a thrift store? Who can survive off of $15 an hour when shoes are like now $30 at the thrift store? Like, even if you're low income, the prices at a thrift store are still way too high given how much you're making. And then, mind you, most people that work for $15 or $16 an hour, like me right now, don't have health benefits. They don't have any benefits whatsoever. And it's just scary to think about that if I get in a medical emergency or just an emergency in general, I don't have anything to work with. I don't have money in my savings, in my checkings. So to buy clothing at a thrift store when you have literally no emergency funds or like money at all, that's just insanity. So in a way, for me, authentic dressing is a process of looking at my closet because of all the limitations that I have, because of all the financial setbacks that I'm facing. It's not a desire to not shop. It's not a thing that I want to do. I do want to shop, okay? I do want to shop. I don't know how else to say this, but if you love fashion, if you love thrifting, if you love styling yourself, you want to shop. And I feel guilty saying this sometimes, but yesterday, for example, I had a very bad interview. I've been interviewing with so many different people, so many different places, okay? Maybe you don't care, maybe you do. If you're listening, maybe this is relevant to you. But whenever I'm in a very stressful situation and I don't know how to cope, I always go thrifting. It's my only, you can say, addiction, my only way of coping with my stress. Now, you may think it's bad, but I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't party, I don't go to clubs, I don't have any vices. I used to collect books. I used to shop a lot. I used to have tons of things. In my latest video, you can see how bad my closet was. I used to live in Montana and I would just buy and buy. And then in one of my other videos, I had a bunch of books in the background and I didn't read maybe half of them. I just needed things. I was hoarding things. And I've fixed that. But one of the things that have remained with me, that's my only, I guess, red flag, is that I like thrifting to deal with the stress of my life. And I buy things just because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I've achieved something, or now I have a cool trinket that I can like reflect on, or that I won from my struggles. So yesterday I went to a Goodwill that was next to the place that I interviewed, and I bought a cute trinket. It was a like flower vase with the face of a guy. It's in the car right now, but it's broken. I need to fix it, so I'm gonna go buy some super glue for it. And then I bought a really cool jacket and a cool sweater and a scrapbook for my fashion collection inspiration and work. And then what else did I buy? I bought a really cool like fist social justice poster. They're all in the car. Do I really need them? No, if they're still in the car. But I bought them because they were cool pieces, and hopefully I can incorporate them in my life. But they were a treat. They were a way for me to be like, I resisted oppression today. I resisted the heavy burden of life. But again, thrift stores are not the solution. I think it actually prevents us from using what's in our closet. I think it's really, 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 really needed to have more of a sense of like, let me shop from my closet. Let me go to my closet to find the quote unquote cool pieces and mix things together. I've seen people who are trying to rediscover their closet, and then they pair something they've never paired with something they already owned, and it's like amazing for them. Like, wow, I never knew I could pair these things, and I actually feel more comfortable, or really resonates with who I am. And that's just amazing. Like, I think we just need to challenge ourselves creatively and be honest that we haven't really tried. Because if you haven't authentically dressed in the past like me, you haven't really tried to like actually make things work that feels good for you. So yeah. Also I want to say, I think I'm just realizing that I've never really felt good in the things that I wear. They just have felt comfortable. Like, I think fast fashion is a security blanket for me, and maybe it's for others. I don't know. I can't cite my sources on what other people are experiencing. But I guess in a selfish way, I don't want people to continue looking like carbon copies of themselves. I currently work at a vintage shop, okay, for context, and it's all the similar clothing. It's like 80s and 90s sort of style, same sort of colored sweaters, same sort of shirts, and I see these beautiful aesthetic teens and young adults come in and just buy the same thing, and they all look the same, they all dress the same. But even if it's from a vintage shop, like, they're still benefiting from buying into a trend, a accepted aesthetic for their generation. Even if it's vintage, it's still conforming. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to be unique. I think it's hard to stand out. I think it's hard to be different when all we want to do sometimes is be accepted, when we want to have friends. And I think a lot of us sacrifice our authentic selves to be liked, to be loved, to have friends, to, you know, be seen and understood. But I personally have never really cared about being a standard or being normal. I was actually thinking about this whole week. Like, masking is such a big thing for me because I'm neurodivergent and I have a different way of thinking about things. I'm a very visual person. I think I have a rebellious spirit, and I've never really cared about fitting in. And I don't have a lot of friends because of it. And I think that's how I fell into like social justice work and environmental activism. I just didn't care about the standard ways of living. I saw how capitalism functioned, how it was negatively affecting my community. And I was just like, how do I find solutions? I was able to meet all these like unique and passionate people in the environmental justice spaces and social justice spaces. But in a way, they also still conform to the system. They're dressed in fast fashion still. They still have these like stereotypical ideas of what beauty should look like or how you should act. I remember how some like even Mexican guys still had this idea that I needed to be a traditional Mexican girl. And when they saw that I wasn't someone that was prone to cook or prone to clean or prone to have the same Catholic values as a standard Mexican American woman, they're like, oh, let me lose interest. I can see the interest just leave their eyes. And it's like, I wasn't even there for romantic reasons. It just kind of hurt. They would like reject me as a person because it's like I'm not fitting this socialized norm of what my culture says I should be, even though these spaces were all about countering systems and countering, you know, oppression and marginalization. It's actually really ironic. So no matter where I've been, people have this deep desire to fit into boxes or fit people into standardizations, and I've always been confused. But I think authentic dressing is just being aware of our choices. I think we're making choices all day, every day, and sometimes fashion may not seem as important or may not seem like it defines us, but it's a part of us. It's a way where we can act on what we believe ourselves of the world. It means a practice of dressing yourself for society, basically, and aesthetically, and for comfort, for survival, you can say too. But I think authenticity within fashion can also mean your confidence level. Like, how confident are you in being yourself? How confident are you of going against the grain? Or how confident are you explaining yourself or your sense of being to others if you stand out too much? Because I had a really great friend who dressed in like fur coats and honestly looked like a Bratz doll, and yet people loved it, but they would always ask why she wore the things that she wore and stuff. And she was constantly explaining where she bought her things, like where her style was coming from, how she put the outfits together. And that was so tedious for me to listen to, because it's like she has to go through all these explanations to almost justify herself, because people are so surprised that she dresses like this and also admiring her at the same time. And I was like, this is just too much. Like, why doesn't everyone else just go and dress how they want? Like, why are they just nitpicking at this person? Like, I get it, they're curious, but like it was a bit too much for me to like listen into. Like, if I had been my friend, I would have been like, it's just an outfit. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, go dress yourself if you want in a more unique way. Like, stop bothering me about my outfit. I just cannot deal with people questioning my outfit. Like, even if they like it, I'm just like, don't. Like, I'm dressing for myself. Like, don't bother me. I know that sounds like very bitchy, but it's like, fashion for me is for me. Like, I don't care about giving you the brands because that doesn't matter to me. I don't care about the inspiration. It's just, for me, it's just the joy of the art, the joy of getting dressed and feeling a certain way for myself. It kind of reminds me of this metaphor of like, when you're going to a museum and walking around, you take in the scene, you know, you process it, you reflect on it, you're relatively silent because that's what a museum kind of expects of you. And then you leave and you kind of think about it a bit more, you share highlights with your friends, and then it's kind of over. You may have taken some photos along the way, but that was really it, you know? And I wish fashion was interacted with like that, where we kind of like look at each other, we admire, we reflect, and then we maybe take a photo of it. If the other person feels comfortable, we kind of further reflect on it, get some main takeaways, and then maybe apply some of those things in your own life. Like, don't nitpick. Like, you're not going up to an art piece and being like, oh, why is your art brush paint stroke on there like that? Like, we should just accept how things are in a way, and then just see how to continue reflecting and understanding it. It's so unnecessary when people are asking me all these details about my outfit. Like, why did I wear this necklace? Because I liked it. It was a vibe. I have no freaking clue. It was on vibes, okay? When people ask me why I combine those shoes with those socks, I have no idea, bro. Like, I don't know. I feel like dressing can be about how we feel, our moods, our emotions, as well, our thoughts and our intuition. And sometimes it's not normal or like cool to be like, yeah, I put this shirt on because I wanted to feel less sad, or it reminded me of the ocean where I went to go visit, and it just, I hope, makes me more happy and resonate deeper with like the energy waves of the world. Like, we don't go around saying that. Maybe that was an extreme example. People would just generally compliment you by saying, oh, your outfit's cute, and that's it. Like, not only are the compliments superficial, but the explanations that we give are very superficial, because we don't really explain our thought processes or our emotions on why we dressed or why we like that outfit in the first place. And I think that's why fashion gets a rep for being superficial. Like, I hope that you continue exploring what makes you look good, what makes you feel good, what resonates with you. Dressing authentically is something that I can't give you a guide for. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your thoughts are. I don't know if you want to be perceived a certain way, what's your struggles right now. To be a stylist, I feel like sometimes is being a fashion therapist, like just delving into your consciousness, delving into your whole life, and then giving you a way to express that materially. I think that's hard. That's so hard, and I respect the work of a stylist, but I don't have the patience or the desire to help you curate art for yourself. I think that's a personal and deeply private practice that I can't like give you a step-on-step guide for. So, for example, when I was working the other day, some guy came up to me and said, I only have black and white clothing in my closet. Is there any good pieces that you could recommend? And I just stared at him and I was like, oh no, like this is my worst nightmare. This is my worst nightmare. This privileged guy at a vintage store who has money to spend is asking me to tell him what to wear. This is my nightmare, okay? This is my worst nightmare. And I literally looked at him and I said, are you looking for white or black clothing, like basics? And he said, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know? Because I'm a very straightforward person and I hate this sort of thing. And he said, I don't know what it looks good or what is good to wear. And I said, what do you gravitate towards? He said, black and white clothing basics. I'm like, okay, that didn't give me anything. You just repeated yourself. So we went to sweaters and I said, do you like sweaters? He said, yeah, I see everyone wearing them, which is a red flag. I never recommend you buying something just because everyone else is wearing it. That's a safety route. It's a safe route to go to if you don't know what to wear. And I said, like, do you want to complement the black and white clothing you have? Do you want more basics? Like, what's the desire here? You know, because at this point he already has all he needs. Now he's just shopping to shop because he's bored. And he was like, I don't know. I'm just looking for options. And I said, okay, let me see what options I can give you. And I was fuming. I was like, I don't want to do this. And so I just was looking at the sweaters and I gave them 3 of them and I said, do you think these would work? And I literally looked at him and I was like, well, this sweater has black and white and small details in it, so it could work with a lot of different pieces in your closet. This sweater is red and has some black elements to it that could give you a pop of color and still work with the black pieces that you have in your closet. And this one is a yellow piece that would completely just go beyond what you typically wear. And I said, try them on, see how they feel, how you think of them, and then we'll go from there. He put them on and he was so indecisive. And I tried to hype him up and I said, oh, these are great. Like, you look amazing in this black one. I think it will work well with your basics. And he was so confused. But honestly, the sweater looked great. It was just a bit big on him. And then he said, is it okay that it's baggy like this? And I said, what's your vibe? Like, do you like form fitting or do you like baggy? What do you feel more comfortable with? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, you came in with like very tight fitting black clothing. Maybe this is a bit too big on you because you would want it a bit more tight based on what you came in wearing. And he just looked at me with these dead eyes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my nightmare. Like, he can't even look at himself in the mirror and know if he likes baggy or tight clothing. He just seems so lost as a person. And it was reflected in his fashion choices. Like, he had no idea what he wanted or what he needed or what he liked. And I felt bad for like hating the process of giving him the sweaters and hating that I hated styling, because I wanted to tell him what to like, and that was basically the job I was given because he asked me to. But I was asking him and asking him and asking him, do you like it? I'm not a salesperson. I'm not going to preach to you to buy something. So I luckily had someone come up to me, such an angel of a boy, so sweet. He was like, I'm ready to check out. And he held up like a hoodie or something, and I told the other person that I was helping, I need to check this person out. I need to, bag their stuff up. And I walked away, and then luckily someone else came in and distracted me. They were trying to like sell some stuff to us or whatever, and I had to call my manager, and that's how I got distracted. And the poor boy that I was trying to help walked out, because as soon as I stepped away, he got so lost and didn't know what to do or what to wear. But I try to give like options. I try to give things that seem to work within the limitations he had in his closet. So I wonder why he only had basic pieces. I wonder why he only wore white and black. I wonder why he didn't know if he liked baggy or form-fitting. I assumed he was in the military, because a lot of people in frontline poor communities, like in my city, go to the military as an option to find support, familiarity, to have money to go to the college in the future, but they lose themselves in the process. I've had friends that have no personality when they're in the military and when they leave the military. So he looked within his mid-20s, so maybe he was over with his like his time there in the military. There's a lot of bases in and around the city, so I had no idea what his story was, and that would have helped so much in like giving him options, and even knowing if sweaters were a good option, because what if he already had too many sweaters? What if he needed more shirts than anything else? Maybe it was better to give him a cool, unique jacket that he really needed. Like, I didn't have enough time to ask all these questions and deep dive into his like brain and his life, because that's what it takes to really like clothe someone well. I can't just like throw stuff at someone being like, hey, like dress authentically this way. I don't know. Some recommendations is to reflect on what you actually need, what isn't in your closet that you need to shop for, if anything. But again, authentic dressing is looking in your closet and seeing what works for you. Maybe you need more comfort in your life. Gravitate towards the comfortable stuff. Maybe you want to be more stylish. Try to combine different unique pieces together, put your jewelry together, and see what looks cool. However you define cool, put it on and try it. Again, everything is subjective, because my version of cool is different than your version of cool. My version of comfort may be different than your version of comfort. My version of what looks authentic on myself, it's completely different than yours. I feel like I'm authentically dressing in green and purple colors and like beige. I like gradient colors. So for me, this is authentic dressing. But for you, this may be like, oh, she didn't try. Don't get up on these like perceptions of what other people are thinking of you or want from you, or how they think. Do what makes sense for you. Authentic dressing is listening to yourself, your emotions, your thoughts. But maybe authentic dressing means something else for you. Maybe it's more about stepping out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's wearing your most favorite pieces in your closet. You define what it means to dress authentically. I can't give you an exact definition of how you go about doing it, but hopefully you're happy and fulfilled by what you're doing on how you're dressing. I don't want to give any rules, and I've never been a rule follower. So if you think following some sort of rule to dress better and more authentically is what you need, go for it. Maybe the rule is to not go shopping anymore. But for me, the rule is, let me look at my closet and take care of the stuff that I have, and make sure that I'm not wearing stuff to please other people or to look a certain way to just make others happy. Because I've done that in the past a lot, where I only dress a certain way to fit in with other people's ideas of me or how I should be, when I'm completely unhappy with how I look. And I never want to do that again. Also, style is so unique, okay? Style can be so many different things. When we think of art, we can classify it under themes, under eras, under different like techniques, but fashion is like art. We can fall into certain, terms, like we can be more athleisure based, we can be more chic, but at the end of the day, that looks so different. So if you want to sort yourself into a style, but still be unique about it, who says that's bad? Do whatever you want. Like, I saw this TikTok the other day that was basically saying we're all waiting to wear our best clothing. And there was this girl that loves to dress up in very beautiful, gorgeous gowns and high heels and like furs and fancy coats. And she's just living her normal life. She's not waiting for the perfect moment to wear what she actually wants. And I think that's just authentic dressing for her. And I love that for her. Like, we shouldn't wait for the perfect day to be ourselves, to dress the way that we want. And if you don't want to force yourself to try anything new, don't worry about it. Like, you have a closet for a reason. Just try to see what will work best, okay? Dressing authentically, if you've never done this before, does not equate to shopping. Be experimental, try things, don't feel too pressured. It's a lifelong journey. We're always discovering ourselves. So hence, we're always discovering how to clothe ourselves, and that can change. But a lot of times I do think we hold ourselves back out of the fear of being disliked or judged or whatever. But that's just human experiences. We all want to be liked, and sometimes sacrifice things to be liked. But let me know if you like this podcast. I am a human that is imperfect and is talking from experiences, having a genuine conversation. I will be bringing guests on. It's a very slow moving process because I'm currently looking for full-time work. I'm currently looking for opportunities that pay the bills, and I am doing a lot of other content creation. So if you want to support me, all the links will be in the description. And yeah, this has been Susty Talks, and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next podcast episode that will be this upcoming Wednesday, which will be February. Yes, this has been the podcast. Until next time, peace and love. Ellie. Bye.